Well, Metroid Fusion has arrived on Nintendo Switch Online as one of the most anticipated titles of the Game Boy Advance games on the service. Originally released back in 2002, this is the predecessor to Metroid Dread, also made by the same team. It's a really underrated Game Boy Advance title, and Metroid fans who miss this game should be rushing to Nintendo Switch Online right away. Well, you play as Samus Aran, the deadly bounty hunter responsible for fighting off hordes of space pirates and destroying their weapons of mass destruction, the Metroids. So Samus heads to the Metroid home planet of SR388 with some scientists with the intention of investigating the planet, but as soon as they land they're attacked by the X-Parasite, a newly discovered dangerous enemy, and Samus falls unconscious while flying a spacecraft, falling out the sky and crashing onto the surface of the planet. Luckily, she's unharmed, although she is overrun by X-Parasites. Her power suit is removed and she's injected with cells from the last Metroid, saving her from certain death, but ultimately transforming her into something new. Samus has little time to recover after the procedure, and a huge explosion rocks the lab, where they're all staying, and it's down to Samus to investigate the new mystery of that space station. Well, there's plenty of callbacks in Metroid Fusion to Super Metroid, and we've got one of them here where Samus wonders where the material for the Metroid vaccine came from, deducing it could only come from the baby Metroid featured in Super Metroid. Well, she learns that Metroids were bred for the purpose of destroying the X-Parasite, and therefore she's now able to withstand the attacks of this new virus. The throwbacks and connections to previous games, they're definitely appreciated, as well as the original Super Metroid. There's also callbacks to Metroid 2 Return of Samus, with the events in the game leading to a story in Metroid Fusion. And good news, Metroid 2 is also available on Nintendo Switch Online, as well as the original Metroid Super Metroid, and also Metroid Prime as well. In terms of the gameplay, it is a really great feeling game. Samus feels really quick. She's got all her signature attacks you'd expect, like ball rolling, spinning and loads of jumps. Quality of life improvements like grabbing ledges and climbing have been added to make Samus feel a little bit more flexible and responsive compared to her environment. As always, at the start of the game, Samus has been stripped of her powers as to regain them throughout the game. Well, Metroid Fusion is a little smaller and more linear than other Metroid games in the series. This was largely rectified in Metroid Dread, which released recently on Nintendo Switch, and you can see here the developers probably wanted to go down that Dread route. They have come out and said that Dread is the game they wanted to make back then, but the tech wasn't in line with their design ideas. Metroid Fusion is more constrained, given it was originally a Game Boy Advance title. They didn't really have much to work with. Progression is more linear. Samus speaks to a ship she calls Adam, who helps out with restoring her suit capabilities. But Fusion has a story to tell, and throughout that story it leads you on a very single-minded path throughout the game. So what that means is there's less deviating from the main path, and more focus on story beats and upgrades to progress. Well, it can be a little bit frustrating going from Super Metroid to Metroid Fusion, where in the former you're pretty much free to explore your path. In Fusion you're restricted by locked doors that prevent you from deviating from your main objective. Fusion is much shorter, and perhaps the player at the time played in shorter bursts given the game released on a handheld device. So Fusion is designed with the medium in mind. But it is notable when the game comes to a platform where you can sit back on your couch and play. It's a small frustration in the grand scheme of things though, as the story is really compelling and well told. So the environment is dangerous and there's a unique feeling to the game given Samus has a different suit in this one. So the environment is really dark and it gives you that classic alien-like tension. There's also lots of different enemies to fight, varied enemy designs and attacks to keep you and Samus on your toes. X-Parasites are the star of the show. There are plenty of varieties. They're small, they're quick, and also some big ones too. Well, the main attraction for me in Metroid Fusion is the SAX, and that is a copy of Samus Aran. Given her power suit was infected at the start of the game, this clone hunts Samus throughout Fusion, plus has her full array of abilities, and Metroid Dread would return to this concept of being hunted in the future, but this is where that concept originated, and it's gripping, it's tense, and really exciting whenever the SAX is on screen. Well, Metroid Fusion was originally a Game Boy Advance game, therefore it is full of beautiful pixel artwork, and full of colour, showing off the full colour palette the Game Boy Advance had to offer. It's an improvement from the dark, atmospheric tones of Super Metroid, once again designed for a specific platform in mind. The colour palette sets it apart from other sci-fi tales, all set against a backdrop of darkness. Now overall, Metroid Fusion is a very good version of Metroid and arguably one of the most anticipated titles to release on Nintendo Switch Online for a while. Now, it's not very long, coming in at around 6 to 8 hours for a normal playthrough, and it is a very good addition to the online service. So talking about Nintendo Switch Online, we've now got Metroid, Super Metroid, Metroid 2, Metroid Fusion, Prime, and also Metroid Dread, all on Nintendo Switch. So I was late to the Metroid series, but if you haven't played much of these great games, I would definitely recommend jumping in, and Fusion is not a bad place to start. Well, that is it for my review of Metroid Fusion. Definitely one to jump in there on Nintendo Switch Online. Also, it is worth noting that the Game Boy Advance games are included in that more expensive tier for Nintendo Switch Online, but with Metroid Fusion, this is a really fantastic game, and as I mentioned before, I did miss out on it the first time round, so it is really good to go to it fresh. As always, thank you so much for watching or listening. Well, don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you real soon.